Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on Toolshed Testimonies, the channel that focuses on tools, Jesus, and how-to. I'm your host Mark, and I'm so glad you tuned in. Stay with us for a great episode. So we're going to talk today about my dad's, some of my dad's experiences finding Jesus before and after, and just let him lead in a way whatever's on his heart and his mind here. And but he's got a lot of wisdom and a lot of life experiences that I think a lot of us can benefit from. And anyways, here he is. Ken?
Okay, thank you. And good to be in a hot seat and to be the first guinea pig.
Yes.
So
yeah.
that doesn't bother me at all.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, one of my sons, I have three boys. Mark's the oldest. They're all smart, talented, hardworking, and I'm very proud of them, all of them. So,
well, thank you.
Anyway, so we're gonna, before I get into my story and my crisis that I went through, and to hopefully it'll help somebody, not just to air my dirty laundry out so people can see it. No, that's not my intention. But before I get into my story, I'd like to mention that, with all the things going on in the world, the crises that are happening in practically everybody's life, there's the border crisis, and then there's the homeless crisis, there's crisis in people's marriages. I mean, there's just so many things, negative things going on in people's lives that it's appalling. It's just a matter of, it's just amazing that so many things can happen so fast. And we got the pandemic and all these things, and the children can't go back to school unless they're homeschooled, and it's just a travesty that so many people are suffering in this way. And so my main story would be, or a title, if you would say, is just the word crisis, and that means a crisis in the Webster's dictionary is a Greek word taken. It means decision, for better or worse. And a lot of people are making bad decisions, and they don't know how to make the right decisions, and when they do, it affects them and their family and everything else. And so I just wanted to, some statistics that are out there as far as suicide goes, because the suicide rate seems to be like just getting out of hand. From 2009 to 2018 in Maine, where we're from, that the suicide rate went up 56%.
Wow.
And in Massachusetts, it went up 64%.
Wow.
And in New Hampshire, a whopping 110%.
Holy cow.
Now, and they were in a crisis, and they decided to go take the other way, and it's a travesty. So getting into my story, and everybody goes through crises practically, once a week, just wait for the next one. It's going to happen. And I'll take you back to Vietnam. I think that was when the major thing started to happen. And when I was in Vietnam, going to Vietnam, it was 1965, and there was a big military buildup in Vietnam then. And so a lot of my friends in high school, I found out they're getting drafted and everything, and I said, gee, I don't want to get drafted, because I want to be able to choose the vocational, instead of just being a grunt. So I enlisted. And that used to be a joke, because I'd tell my buddies, I'd say, gee, I beat the draft. He said, how'd you do that? I said, I enlisted. So I got 3 years instead of 2, but still, after that, they had to go to reserve meetings for 6 years and all this stuff. So I didn't regret enlisting in the Army. So we went in the service, and my first of course, basic training, and then Fort Riley, Kansas, where they were reactivating the 9th Division, which was a big push. And it hadn't been, I don't know if it had been going on since the Second World War, but they reactivated it, and everybody was new there, and everybody was getting rank like real quick, and all that stuff. We played war for a whole year, and a lot of it was games, but we because we had no idea what we were getting into. So we went over Vietnam, I think in '66, December, and by boat. And there was 3,000 of us on this one cruise ship. Well, it wasn't a cruise ship. It actually was a luxury ship that was built, years ago for just tourists and stuff like that. So a lot of guys got rooms, with baths and everything. And I was supposed to get one because I was an E5, which is like a basic sergeant. And when they came to me, they ran out of rooms. So I had to go down in the hold where the propeller was, and on the 4th bunk. I mean, things couldn't have got much worse. And so I found myself, I said, wow, what a stroke of luck or bad luck that was. So anyway, we by the time we got over to Vietnam, we were kind of glad actually to get off the boat and everything. And so we went to we occupied this village after we got through base camp for a while, and a battalion of us, or no, brigade, I guess 500 people, 500 guys, went to this town called Rakhine, and it was 30 miles south of Saigon. And once we got there and set up shop and everything else, and it was down in the jungle, and we occupied half of this village, and the other half the Vietnamese had. And it was a new experience for sure. And a lot of things happened there that were that were kind of scary. But I remember this one time that kind of set me back as far as hoping I'm going to get home again. And this right in back of us where we were staying in this tent, this old building at first. And there was a tent in back of that, and that was called Graves and Registration. Well, that was where they brought the guys who were getting killed in body bags, and they would bring them back there, and of course they would just clean them up and all that stuff. And so one day I was out there, and I said I just met this guy I knew. He worked there, and he says, "Hey, you want to see something?" And I said, gee, I'm not sure, should I? He says, it's up to you. I says, oh, okay. So I went in there, and the night before, they had a artillery called in for these guys who were out on patrol. Well, whoever called in, which was probably a second lieutenant, missed. He had the wrong he had the wrong thing going on there, because the shells fell short of the target, and 12 guys got killed and blown up, and there was one guy that was in back of a tree trying to sleep, and he was the only one that escaped. So when I went in there, they had them all in on gurneys, and I knew some of them, and there was arms blown off, heads, half of people's heads blown off, just big holes in them, and I mean, it was a gory sight. And after I got out of there, I thought, gee, what's my chances here? It looks like I'm not really going to make it back. And so anyway, we, of course, Vietnam, being there and knowing that you may not make it back, a lot of guys, including myself, started doing drugs over there, and this and that, because we had a who cares, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you might die. So anyway, we stayed there for, I think it was 8 or 9 months, and I got shipped to this little outpost. It was about 100 guys, and I was there for the rest of my term. But while we were there, of course, we would, trade the villagers for opium, and give them things that they wanted, kind of barter system. And they thought we were great. You know, we would sneak out of we would sneak out of the compound, which was stupid, and go down the village at night. And my buddy, he called me from Texas one time after he got out of the service. He said, "Do you know what we did?" And I kind of had an idea what we did. He says, he said, that was real stupid. I said, I knew it had to be. And we went down there because we knew these Viet Cong in the regular Viet Cong army. They had a house down there, and they would invite us in because we'd give them, you know, the mess hall guys never liked liver, so we'd bring along a 40-pound frozen liver and give to him. And he thought, oh, we were like we were the best people in the world. So we got along with them all right. But the thing was, it was Viet Cong everywhere, and I mean, they could have just took us out anytime, but yeah. Made it back. But so anyway, after I got out of Vietnam, I went to Colorado Springs and Fort Carson, and there I learned, you know, there were other drugs out there you could take, LSD and all this other stuff, and shooting up this. I didn't even know what it was. And one time I almost we went to this guy's house. He showed us with something. And I had to stop on the side of the road. My buddy was with me, and my head started pounding. And I thought I was going to die. It took me a long time to recover from that, whatever it was. And so I stopped doing that with the needle thing. And but when I got out of there, I went home. Actually, another stupid thing I did was, you know, my family was expecting me to come home. It was my time to get released from the service. So instead of going home, I went to California because that's where I was going to live. Did I tell anybody? No. And they were wondering, where is he? They probably were having, you know, welcoming home party or something, but I was so messed up in my mind that I just was making wrong decisions left and right. So I finally got a telegram from my aunt, and she says, because I finally sent them an address where I was, and they said, oh, I said, I can't come home, I don't have the money. She said, well, because they said, my aunt says, my mother is very sick, you got to come home. I said, oh, gee, I guess I got her. So I didn't think I'd be coming back, so I sold my motorcycle, motor scooter when I was out there and everything. I was out there near North Hollywood living, and so they sent me the money, and I came home, and lo and behold, my mother was not sick. And so that got me pretty upset. And of course, and I was did a stupid thing there. But so anyway, I was going through turmoil and everything, and you know how things are. You always and I was, you know, doing drugs still and working at this place, and I was you know, just wasting away. Kind of, I was super depressed, kind of like manic depressive. I was just you know, it was just a state of mind that I didn't intend on getting, but I was in there and I was stuck.
Now, was this, sorry to interrupt,
yeah, oh no,
was this something that you dealt with before Vietnam, or is this something that kind of was an after effect from Vietnam, the depression, and or did you always kind of struggle a little bit with that?
I never had such a deep depression. Of course, everybody goes through things like that, and I suppose, you know, I probably did have bouts of it, but you know, at the time you don't know. And of course, after coming from Vietnam, there, you know, back then they didn't know what PTSD was.
Right.
They would just say, you know, and I'm sure when I got home, I was acting kind of strange. So, yeah, I didn't have any deep problems, I don't think. I had plenty of problems, but I don't think depression wasn't, you know, because I'd always covered over with something, you know.
Right.
But when I got home and I left and I got my own apartment, and then I started, you know, doing more and more drugs and getting deeper into this depressive state, that you know, I finally started looking around for like self-help books, and I went to the library, see if there's anything, and I started looking at religious things. I didn't have a stitch of religion in me. Wasn't religious at all. Never, barely went to church except when I was small. And so anyway, things got worse, and then of course I got out of the service in '68 November, and then come around, in the summer of '69. I was working at this place, and I wanted to, kind of have a clean slate. So I went down to my mother's and father's, grandmother and grandfather's, and of course at the time my brothers, twin brothers, were 13, and and I went down there to unload, what I've been doing, just get it off my chest. And I think when I went down there, probably the timing wasn't good because they were, they were occupied with other things, and they were probably, I wanted to, have a sit down, talk with them, and get, but it wasn't that kind of situation. So I got, I said, oh, that's it. I had thoughts of suicide. I mean, it wasn't a matter of if I was going to do it; it was when and how. So I got discouraged, and they probably wondered, he's acting strange because I didn't stay there long. I just turned around and I went out, and and I don't blame my mother and father because they were hardworking,
Right.
My mother and my dad both hardworking, and
They're just doing the best they could.
doing the best they could with what they had,
Yeah.
And
And like you said, they didn't understand mental health back then either.
Oh no, they just say, oh gee, he's acting strange or something like that,
And the vets should have, in their mind, just come home and go back to normal, I guess.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It's just, and I understand now. And you just can't. You come back to civilian life, and you've been living this other thing with this other style of life.
some extreme trauma. So.
Yeah. So I didn't realize what was going on, but I was really, to the point where I could have committed suicide. I was thinking very, thoughts about it. So after that night, I guess it was night, when I came back from my mother and father's, I was sitting there and I was wondering, what should I do? I got to make some kind of decision. I'm not going to live like this for the rest of my life, feeling like this. I said, life seems to have, and the biggest thing, it was like, the biggest thing that I was going through my mind, and I said, I just don't think anybody loves me. It wasn't like a romantic love I was looking for. It was just, acceptance, I guess, and that's what a lot of people are looking for today: acceptance and hope, and
someone that cares about you.
Someone that cares about you. And there didn't seem. In fact, I made a list. I can't remember if it was a mental list or whether it was actually. I wrote down names. I probably did, and wrote down a whole bunch of names of people I knew, and friends and relatives, and of course, and thinking back, they had their own lives, so I can't expect them to, to come to my aid or whatever. So, but I was kind of alone there and stuff, and so I went down the list. I crossed them off, saying they don't love me. They could care less. These people don't love me. They don't love me. The only people who would miss me if I wasn't there tomorrow morning would be the people that I worked for, because they would say, "Where is he?" Right. Other than that, I said, "Well, I don't think anybody else would even know that I'm gone." So I made this list, and I checked everybody's name off, and at the end of the list, I put God, and I said, because I had heard, different, maybe evangelists here and there on TV or something, and he said, I remember him saying, God loves you, Jesus died on the cross to paid for your sin. He said, you don't have to suffer with your sin and everything, because Jesus forgave everybody. I says, so when I first started talking with God, I didn't know God was there, of course. And I said, God, if you're there, I says, I don't, this love, I don't feel love at all. I don't see love anywhere. I said, where is this love he's talking about? I says, I don't see it. I don't feel it. I say, I said, so finally it boiled down to, I said, God, if you're there, do something for me now. Not tomorrow morning, not later, not next week, but now. And as soon as I said that, I, and I'm not big on experiences because a lot of them maybe, might not be real, or they're people who said, oh, you can't go by your feelings. But when I said, God, help me now, this, I didn't see no bright lights, no fanfare, nobody there. But I felt this, I felt this love that God was saying. I didn't, and it was like a big sign was put out in front of me. Jesus. That's all I knew. That Jesus had come into my life, and I didn't know it. And it was the first prayer that I meant probably in my whole life. And because if he didn't do anything, I was going to do something.
Right.
And so he came into my life, and I was filled with this joy. I mean, when I was going through this list, of course, I have to admit I was, weeping and everything else because I was so depressed. And those tears was like a faucet. I turned. The tears were tears of joy. I mean, went from tears of morbid tears of depression to joy. And I couldn't believe it at first. I said, I knew God heard me, because he would just fill me with this love and this peace that was beyond understanding. And so I stayed up. I don't know if I did sleep some, I guess. But I thought when I woke up the next morning, I said, was this real, or am I just imagining this? And I said, no, I can feel this love still in me, and this peace. So there was a gentleman in his family that lived upstairs over me. They had the top floor to this house, and I lived on the bottom floor. So I went up there. His name was Bill Freitas, and his wife, 2 kids. And I had never really been up there much. I never had any occasion to. I just, did my thing. And so I went up there. It might have been the next day. And I said, Bill, I knocked on his door, and he says, yeah, hey, what's up? And I said, I got something to tell you. And he says, what? What's going on? And I said, something happened to me last night. And he says, well, sit down and want a drink? I says, no, I just had something to tell you. And he says, well, go ahead, what happened? And I says, I was in a bad way. I said, I called out to God. I said, and Jesus came into my life. And I says, and I have this love in my heart. And I said, but I didn't focus on myself, because, love just wants to give out. So I said, well, I had to come up here and tell you that God loves you. He loves your family. He loves your wife. And I says, and that's, at the time I didn't know any verses in the Bible that God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever calls on Him will be saved. And I didn't know anything like that. So he probably thought, he's really gone off the deep end here. Because of course they didn't know it, but I had marijuana growing in my house, and I planted it out in the garden, and of course they didn't know what it was then. So when they were gone, I went and took it out and ripped it up, went in the woods. I took all the drugs out of it. I had a suitcase full of drugs that I was going to sell some to my cousin. And so I threw all those down the toilet. And because I knew, I said, this God that came into my life, I said, I know that's wrong. I know. So, and so from then on, anybody I saw, I just had to tell them this, and I had a friend of mine that just passed away not too long ago. He came over because we were playing in this band at this club in Exeter, New Hampshire. And so we had planned on practicing and playing there. And I told him, he came over and says, "You ready to practice?" I said, no. In the old cliche, something happened to me. And he says, "What do you mean?" I says, I can't play the blues anymore. I said, "I'm not blue." I said, something happened. And he says, "What could have happened?" I says, "Well," and like I say, I didn't know any scriptures or nothing. I knew that Jesus had come into my life, and he was there to stay. And I said, "Well, Jesus came into my life," and I said, "That's all I can tell you." I said, "It made me a different person already." And of course, you don't become perfect when you become a Christian. You got many things.
Right.
I'm going through things now. This is after 52 years, but
Yeah.
I think I like that bumper sticker. It said, "Christians are not sinless; they just sin less." Because
Yes.
you know,
Yeah,
God.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another incident. I brought this fellow I went to cooking school with in Boston. I think he's deceased already, but anyway, dentist in Encore, and I brought him down. He said, "Yeah," he says, "I'll bring a couple of Kingers with me." You know, there used to be, the tall bottles of beer.
Oh,
I says, yeah, go ahead. And so he came down, and I said, other people drink that are Christians and stuff, and I that's not my business. But at that time, I wanted to clean the slate
Right.
completely.
Right.
And he says, "I brought some beer down there." I said, "Well," I invited you down for a reason. I said, and there again, I told him, I says, "Something has happened to me," and he was confused. He thought that I was like gone. And I told him, I said, "Jesus has come into my life." I says, I said, the things that I did before, I said, I just can't do. And a friend of mine came down on a Saturday night, because they usually pick me up, I think, to go down to Salisbury Beach and go to all the clubs and everything. They call it down the line, going down the line. He says, "Hey, you ready to go? We're down the line. We're going tonight." And I said, no. His name was Buster Adams. I haven't seen him for 52 years, so since that night. And he drove in a van down to my house. And he says, "You going?" I says, "No." He says, "How come?" The old thing again. Something happened to me. Something happened to me, Buster. He says, "What happened to you?" I says, "Jesus has come into my life." And I says, "I'm all through with everything." And because I was still riding high on this peace that God had given me. And of course, that same peace I have today.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
not without troubles. Mark will verify that.
Yes.
He's had a few of them of his
Yes.
own.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I started to find out I wanted to go to a church, and I said, "What church? I don't even know what church to go to." I said, I just said, "Oh, gee, I go to this one. It's the First Baptist Church, I guess."
Now, how long was this after? Are you talking like weeks or so, or days?
No,
or?
I got saved in August. The day I don't know.
Yeah.
But one verse it said, back then they had this 4 spiritual laws. It was like a little tract that people had 4. If you follow all these and mean it, God will come into your life.
Yeah.
I bypassed all those 4 spiritual laws. And I just, it says, "Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved."
Yeah.
And that's all I did.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And someone else says, "Well, you got to have, in the Bible it says something about witnesses, 3 witnesses to verify a vow or something."
Yes.
And I said, I have 3 witnesses. I have God the Father, the Son Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. I said, "There's 3. That's good enough for me." And then of course other people would say, "Oh, you can't go by feelings and experiences. How do you know it was real?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. You can't go by feelings. Well, I'll tell you what. When the love of God comes in you feel pretty good.
Yeah.
And I felt great.
Yeah.
And
to be able to dump all the drugs that you were taking to probably alleviate some of that pain, to not even have to touch it anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen normally like that.
No, I thought that, everybody experienced this, when they became a Christian.
Right.
And then, of course, when I met my wife, Candy, her father was a preacher, a pastor, a real great guy, and his wife, Jo, my mother-in-law. And so when she told me, her testimony, I mean, all she did was she was 5 years old.
Mm.
She just said, her father led her to the Lord and said, do you want to receive Jesus into your heart? And of course she said yes.
Yeah.
And she became a Christian,
Yeah.
and I had to go through all this stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And in order to come to my wit's end, and a lot of people have to, but, if you...
Yeah, that's. I guess that was kind of a question I was gonna ask you is, do you really think that you had to go through everything that you went through? I mean, do you think if someone may have come up to you as a young boy or a teenager, maybe things would have been different, or do you think just knowing yourself, you had to go through that?
Probably I was, it's like, it's like kids nowadays, they want to try something new, something makes them feel better, because they want to escape the feelings they have because they're terrible,
Yeah, right.
and they'll take anything, even though they think it may not be good to take this because it might kill me.
Mm.
And that's what's happening with this, all these drugs that are out there now.
Right. And when you're a kid, you think you're invincible anyways.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You think you're going to live forever.
I mean, I took stuff that, my motto back then was, I'll try anything twice. And that's how, dumb I was.
Wow.
And, but then, yeah.
So you think going through all the Vietnam, and God was preparing your heart, I believe.
Yeah.
So obviously that's the path that He, I guess, had for you.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could remember anything that was there anybody in your life before Vietnam that was trying to maybe or trying to reach out to you? Or?
Yeah, when I was in Vietnam, when I was actually in Colorado Springs, there was this guy. I knew he was trying to get at something, and he'd come in. I was working in the mess hall, and I was the head cook there, one of them, and he said, yeah, would you like to go to church sometime? And I said, yeah, I'm usually working here in the morning. I said, I don't know, real nice guy, and everything. And I said, and I kind of blew him off,
Yeah.
And then were just certain things happened. We were going to Colorado Springs to whatever party or something, and there was this guy thumbing on the road, and so we picked him up, and I was in the back seat with him and everything, and he was saying, he says, you guys, can I give you one of these flyers? He says, we're having a meeting or something going on in our church. And there was just something about him, I thought, and nobody wanted to take this pamphlet. I said, oh, dude, I don't want to hurt his feelings. So I took one of these flyers, from him and stuff. But, there was probably a chance there if I had said, yeah, I'll go there. I might have got saved earlier, who knows. But being, the way I was, I probably had to go through what I did just to, to actually go to a lot of people have to go to their wit's end.
Right.
But you got saved when you were young.
Yeah, I believe it was 5 or 6. And man, I just, I know for sure it wasn't, just because the Sunday school teacher brought it up, but I just knew that when I asked him in my heart, ever since that time, I can remember just, I've had that closeness with him, and almost like a friendship, it's like anything I did that I knew was wrong, I knew I was going to be, disobeying. I just knew in my heart that he was there, and he loved me, and I loved him, and it was hard to explain. Obviously through life, it gets stronger. Sometimes there's a lot of doubt because I was young and was like, man, did I really, have I really been saved? But then you have to look back on some of the things that's happened in your life, and it just reminds you of, yeah, he's he's always been there. I mean, if anything, I was, in some areas of my life, I try to abandon him, but but obviously he's always
Yeah, he
there.
says, "I will never leave you or forsake you ever."
Right. So I think the lonely times, was obviously on my part, and but no, he's always been there. I remember as a little kid too, when I think it was second grade. I remember we went to some kind of Bible or Christian bookstore or something like that, and you guys let us pick out some trinkets or something.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was, or maybe I don't know. But anyways, I had this little pencil. I had this little tiny bumblebee on a spring, and it said "Jesus loves me" on the pencil, pretty big. And I loved that pencil. I thought it was cool, so I brought it to school, the next day or whatever, and I had it on my pencil holder on my desk, and some kid behind me started picking on me about it, and I remember clear as day. I felt ashamed, and I turned that pencil very carefully. Without him seeing, I turned it so he couldn't see Jesus loves me anymore. And after that, I know it sounds so stupid and simple, but I felt rotten. I felt horrible after that, because he's my friend. Jesus is my friend, and I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, almost saying that no, he's not. I don't know. I know it's way different than your experience, but I knew he was there.
Yeah,
but and then there's things in later in life that just kind of reassure you. It strengthens you. Obviously, you still have to go through some things to grow that relationship with Jesus. So it's
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I remember before I got saved, before I called on the Lord, there was this evangelist on TV or something. I turned him way down low so my neighbors couldn't hear them watching him, because I was like, I don't think I'm religious. So, but he said this one verse always stuck in my mind. It was Proverbs 29:1. It says, "He that being often reproved or corrected will suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy." And I thought, and I kind of paraphrased that in my mind. I said, that means that God will put up with you for a certain amount of time. And it says that he will not always strive with man. You keep pushing him off and pushing him off. God may just let you go by yourself and just, and let you alone. I mean, that's the worst thing that could happen, is God leaving you alone.
Right.
So that's another thing that convicted me. And I said, I thought, I don't want that to happen to me.
Right.
But when I got saved and everything, I for being a kind of shy person, I had to get this message out. So one day I went to the junior high school in Exeter, New Hampshire, and I just went in the office of the principal's office there, and I said, "You mind if I go to some classrooms and talk about drugs?" Of course, back then they were the big thing. Everybody was doing drugs and all this stuff. And they had a big seminar after. But I went in. I don't know how many classrooms, but I went in and I told them about drugs, but I also told them about Jesus. I said, that's the only permanent way that you're ever going to get over drugs and the effects of it.
Wow.
And so when I came back, some teacher must have came to his office and said, this guy is pushing religion. And so he came up to me when I left. He says, if I'd have known that you came up here with this that had religious connotations to it, he said, you'd have never got in here.
Wow.
But this something else happened. They had a seminar, and I was willing to go anywhere to tell my testimony, So I went to the same junior high school somewhere down the road. They had this big seminar with everybody in town, and they had the gymnasium there, and they had this big circle of people all the way around. So I went to this seminar. I said, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to tell them like it is, what it is. And I said, so it was coming around to my turn, and getting up and speaking in front of, I don't know how many people were there, lots. And I said that. So when I got up and spoke, God was with me, and I told them exactly what happened, and I said, it's the only cure.
Mm.
for drug abuse or any other kind of abuse.
Yeah.
And after the seminar, this same principal came up to me and actually apologized
Oh,
to
really?
me.
Wow.
He says I didn't know that it was about this. And he says, he says, I'm sorry, I apologize for what I said. And
Oh,
I
wow.
said, no, I said, you had no idea. I said,
Hmm.
I said, what I'm telling you is the truth.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
so I went to different places,
That's awesome. Wow.
halfway houses, and spoke to people and
Wow.
different places. And it was, it was like just something I wanted to do too.
Mm.
And you know, and
Wow.
there's because people. I mean, there's millions of people out there too, and kids that are, you know, don't know which way to turn. There's no
Mhm.
hope.
Yeah.
They think that life is hopeless, and there's no one there to help them.
Yeah.
And little do they know, like I did. I said he's only a prayer away,
Mm.
and he was there, and he will. He said, "Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and you shall be saved."
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
and you know, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And
Yeah.
he's been faithful. He'll be your friend. And you say, how does this all happen? I said, and I'll tell you now, I don't know. I don't know how it happens.
Yeah.
But God is everywhere present at the same time.
Yeah.
He knows the hairs of your head. And he knows, you know, you talk about the stars. And there's, as far as we can see, you know, with these big telescopes, there's, you know, maybe billions of not just stars, but galaxies,
Mm.
and billions of stars in the galaxies. And they're all going synchronized, you know, all at the same time.
Mm.
And you say, oh, just happened by chance. No, there was a designer there.
Right.
There was an architect, and he designed everything. He designed your body. And we know when God got together in the book of Genesis, you know, before they were planning out the human body, you know, 5 fingers, and you know, we all have the same organs.
Mm.
Our DNA is 99.9% the same. The other 0.1 is our personality or
Mhm.
features
Yeah.
and everything else. But
Yeah.
so he knows us,
Yeah.
and he wants us to respond to him, you know. And God will never force his way into your life, never.
Right.
You know, that
Right.
he doesn't even force decisions that we make ourselves.
Yeah.
Being Christians, we make the wrong decisions sometimes, but he lovingly brings us back to where we should be.
Yeah.
So
And I guess that's something to consider too. Is if you're not a Christian, you know, like you said, it's just a prayer, and it really is. It's so simple, and people, you know, I think a lot of people make it sound like it's way more than that, but it's not. It's so simple. We complicate it, but it's. I think I've said this in a video before. It's an experience that you just can't. It's hard to describe unless you actually make that step and accept him and believe in him. You won't. I mean,
no.
And right. I mean, I'm not. I don't have a lot of literacy in my my education, but it's just hard to describe the feelings. It just totally changes you. It really does.
It does. You believe first, and then you know. People say,
Yes,
well, I have to
right.
see to believe. I have to see this. I have to
Right.
see him doing something.
You can,
I mean, when Jesus was on earth, like, you know, 2,000 years ago, people saw his miracles and everything, and they still didn't even believe.
right.
And we'd say, well,
Yeah.
if Jesus would come and do a miracle in front of me, yeah, I'd believe it.
Yeah.
But you won't know him until you
No.
believe first, and then you'll know.
Right. I mean, you could go to Bible school. You can get a doctorate. I mean, we've seen it recently, unfortunately, in a lot of
Mhm.
pastors, and you have to kind of question if they were even Christians because they're falling
Mhm.
so hard, but yet they have all this education. They know the Bible back and forth, but they never really knew him.
Yeah, yeah. Because
I mean, they really, you know, I mean, you don't have to be a Bible scholar. You don't have to know, like you said, one verse to know his love. You don't.
no.
You really don't.
And there was an incident in the New Testament there, I'm not sure exactly where, one of the Gospels. They came up to Jesus and called him they said, Jesus, he says, we want to get to know you or something like this, or we do know you. And they said, well, we've done many wonderful works in your name. We've cast out demons. We've done this or done that. And he said, depart from me. And he didn't say, sorry, fellas, you don't know me. He said, depart from me, you evil workers. I never knew you.
Yeah.
So, they just never experienced who God is.
Right.
And he said, depart from me, I never knew you.
Yeah.
You could say, well, I've been teaching Sunday school for 25 years. I've got all this. I know the Bible back and forth and this. Surely I got to be saved. It's not by works, but it's by His grace that you are saved.
Yeah.
And
you got to get rid of that I attitude, or the self attitude, I guess.
Right.
You got to set yourself aside to accept Him, I think, right? I mean, you pretty much come to a point where, you have to say, I am nothing. I know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Just
before I got
put
saved.
yourself away.
Yeah. Before I got saved, and I think a lot of kids have a bad self-image of themselves. I had a terrible one. I thought I was zero. And but it's amazing, and here we are, 52 years later. I know I'm zero, but I'm happy with it. Jesus does, when Jesus comes into your life, it has to be more of Him and less of us. And so down through the years, God's working in my heart and tells me, this isn't right, that isn't right, and I keep falling and stumbling, and so finally, it is like the Apostle Paul said, it's no longer I that live, but it's Christ lives in me.
Yeah.
And the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loves me, gave Himself for me, and that's it. I mean, you say, well, and it's the only way to heaven. They said, there's many ways to go to heaven. You can, this way or that way, this religion, that religion. Jesus said, He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no man comes to the Father except through me. Now, what part of no man do you not know? He said, no man comes to the Father except through Jesus. So, you say, well, gee, you have to disregard all the religions. Well, you have to. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
Well,
you come against God. And,
if you don't love God, why would He want you in His kingdom? I mean, really. I mean, if someone hates you, are you going to let them stay with you?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be an awkward situation. So, it just makes sense that, He'll let you not be with Him if you don't like Him, So, if you don't accept Him, but.
Yeah, God is very patient.
Yes.
As we both know.
Yep.
Because we're not perfect, for sure, by any means. And but we do know we're going to heaven. You say, oh, gee, that's kind of arrogant. How do you know you're going to heaven? Well, because Jesus paid it for me. He did. He says I'm going.
Yeah.
And I'll be going there. I'm not afraid of death. I might be afraid of the process of dying. I don't particularly want to go through what some people go to die.
Right.
But I'm not afraid of what's going to happen afterwards. I know that. He's already accepted me. He's accepted Mark. He's accepted millions of people around. I'm not the only one with a testimony, that's for sure. I've heard some great ones. And it just breaks my heart when I hear him. And it breaks my heart with joy when I hear someone that's been, sometimes it can be a religious person. That can be a better testimony than someone that's done stupid things all their life and finally God picks them up. But you take the Apostle Paul. I mean, he was steeped in religion. He was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He was taught by Gamaliel, the best Jewish teacher at the time, and he knew the Bible, the Old Testament, up and down, back and forth, and you talk about someone religious, but God, on the way to the road to Damascus, he struck him down with lightning, and he fell off his horse. And he said, "Who is this, Lord?" he didn't know what happened to him. And Jesus says, "Why are you kicking against the briars?" And he said, because he was persecuting Christians. Here he was. He was a religious zealot for God, he thought, and he was actually doing damage to the Christians there, the real Christians. So when he got saved, now he became the Apostle Paul, and he is probably the best, the greatest human disciple that has ever happened. He's,
Yeah.
when I wonder when I look and see, gee, who's my pastor and this and that, and I go to Apostle Paul. I say, because Apostle Paul said, he says, "Follow me as I follow Christ." He was so confident in his walk with God that he could say, "Just follow me and you'll be good."
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm not sure if that's
I
going to be
guess
it.
we could keep going, but maybe we'll have another
Sure.
episode with you and talk about some other
Yeah,
things.
we can ask some questions and answers, and a Q&A time or something.
If anybody out there wants to know more about my dad, Ken, just put some questions in the comments for us, and we'll try and get back to those questions if there are any. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope this helps someone out there, and I hope this draws you near God. If you don't know him, I hope this really speaks to your heart.
Amen. That's nothing much I can add to that.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Remember to like and subscribe, and you'll see another episode of the testimonies again. Stay tuned.
God bless.